on to the power to a power property. And your learning target, just like it's been throughout this whole unit, you can simplify exponential expressions. Each lesson, I'm expecting you to utilize everything else I have taught you. Meaning you need to know negative exponents, you need to know zero exponents, you need to know the multiplication property of exponents, and now you need to know what to do with a power to a power property. So when I want us to really scaffold our knowledge here, what does x squared cubed mean? Think to yourself, what does that mean? I know 2 cubed means 2 times 2 times 2. I know that. Well, what if it's a power inside, like as the base? So let's just analyze this awesome math here. It says 5 cubed means 5 times 5 times 5. So blob, whatever the heck you have, cubed, is really the blob times the blob times the blob, 3 times. So here, this first example, our blob just happens to be x squared. So what x squared cubed means is x squared times x squared times x squared, 3 of them. Which really means now we can apply our multiplication property. This is really 2x's and 2x's and 2x's. So we can add them. X to the 2 plus 2 plus 2, which is x to the 6th. So x squared cubed is really 2x's cubed. It's 2x's times 2x's times 2x's, which is 6x's. Now, of course, you don't ever have to expand it out. That's where it comes from. That's the foundation where all of this comes from. When you think about it, what did I really do to the 2 and the 3? I multiplied. I went x to the 2 times 3, which is x to the 6. That is the power to a power property. Now this is where our brains are going to try to play tricks on us. Now that you know you can multiply exponents, it's going to be hard to know when do you multiply, when do you add, because you don't always multiply and you don't always add. The best thing I can tell you, do you see that it looks like well, obviously it is parenthesis. Well, notice if I had this, a number sticking to parenthesis means I distribute it, doesn't it? A number sticking means I distribute. So really, I'm distributing this 3. And distribute means multiply. Okay? So if there's not parentheses, you do not multiply. If it looks like you need to distribute because of parentheses, when you will multiply. Okay. So let's simplify w cubed. W cubed. Well, according to the product of a power property, it's really w to the 3 times 3, which is w to the 9th. But oh my gosh, what if you forget that all of a sudden? Well, you can expand it out. W cubed 3 times is 3 w's times 3 more w's times 3 more w's, which is w to the how many?
9.
3, 6, 9. I had 9 w's. But what my brain sees, what my eyes look at is, hey, it looks like I'm using the distributive property because a number is sticking to parentheses. And when a number sticks to parentheses, you multiply. Okay? I like saying this. So the generalized property says a to the n to the n is equal to a to the n times n. A to the n to the n is equal to a to the n times n. A to the n to the nth equals a to the n times n. And now you can apply it. Now you know where it comes from. Now we can just apply that. But just be careful. You're going to have to throw them all together today. So you need to know, when do I multiply? When do I add? When do I move? Okay? So this next exponential expression looks like I need to distribute that exponent of 11. Do you see that? And what else do I need to distribute? The 2. But only to the parentheses it's sticking to. So this is w to the 4 times 11, x to the 9 times 2. W to the 44, x to the 18. And I don't need to do anything because I don't have any zeros and I don't have any negative exponents. Okay? Now you could do w to the 4th 11 times. Have fun with that. I would not ever personally do that. You could do 9x's twice and you could get it that way. Okay, moving to the next page. We're going to put it all together. We are going to put everything together, meaning all these properties we have learned aside from the division property. We're going to throw it all together here. So the first thing I want always, and this is just like normal order of operations, parentheses are like spotlights. Like, hey, I'm super important, do me first, okay? So the first thing you always need to do is distribute any powers. And maybe give yourself a visual so you know what that means. That means if I had 3x squared, that's distributing your powers. And then you're going to combine like bases. This is when you add the exponents. So first multiply the exponents. Second, you add the exponent. And move any negative exponents and get rid of any zeros. Okay? So you distribute the powers, that's the multiplying, and then you combine your like bases, that's when we add, move any negatives, and get rid of any zero powers. So let's go ahead and apply this. So 3x squared y to the 4 times parenthesis xy cubed to the negative 2. Well, I'm going to have to make my shy little one come out. Because I have to remember that negative 2 is getting distributed to everything. That means whatever is inside parentheses is getting this negative 2. Okay? So this is 3x squared y to the 4 times x to the 1 times negative 2, y to the 3 times negative 2. I'm serious. You got to multiply that negative 2 to everything inside the parentheses. I'm just going to pretty this up a little bit. This is 3x squared y to the 4 times x to the negative 2, y to the negative 6. That was step 1. That's distributing my exponents. Now I can add. I can combine my like bases. So it's really 3 times 1 is 3. X to the 2 plus negative 2. Y to the 4 plus negative 6. Which is 3x to the 0, y to the negative 2. And then I'm not done because I have 0 negative powers. So I box off my 0 and negative. That's from our first lesson with powers. And then that just turns to 1, so it just kind of disappears. And y to the negative 2 needs to get shifted down to the bottom. So it's 3 on top over y squared is your final answer. And you're done because there's no zeros and no negative exponents. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and bring this one down here so I have a little bit more space. Be careful. That 2 needs to be shared and distributed with everything. Just like when you distribute. Just like when you distribute like this, you have to distribute this 2 to everything. So this 4 4, make the 1 come out, please. Because just 4 is actually 4 to the first power. And this 2 is getting shared with the 4, and it's getting shared with the negative 4. So this is 4 to the 1 times 2, x to the negative 4 times 2. Which is 4 squared x to the negative 8. Which is 16 over x to the 8th, right? Because you got to move that negative exponent. So you have 4 squared, 16. Put the negative exponent on the bottom, and then you're done because you have no zeros and no negatives.